WRAL 5 on Your Side investigation is making international headlines. Their investigation into cancer in people who worked or studied in NC State's Education Hall has been featured now in Times London, People Magazine, USA Today, and most recently NBC Nightly News. Keely Arthur joining us now to show us how this new international reach for this story has led to the discovery of even more potential cases.
It has, and that's kind of an unexpected thing. When the university closed the building last fall, after detecting those cancer-causing chemicals inside, 5 on Your Side began tracking the number of people who worked or studied there and later developed cancer because nobody else was tracking that. Now, thanks to this international attention our investigation has received, we are receiving reports of cases almost daily. Here's one from an NC State alum living in New Mexico now with cancer. She says if it wasn't for our reporting, she would have never known about Poe Hall.
I was hoping to survive.
You can't even imagine what it's like.
These 8 women are united by a common diagnosis.
Thyroid cancer my junior year.
Ovarian cancer.
I was diagnosed at the age of 34.
I finished chemo at the end of November.
And a common belief.
We're talking about this one building.
That this building at North Carolina State University called Poe Hall caused their cancer.
We were all students or working there.
And they are far from alone. In the fall, the university found PCBs, a cancer-causing chemical, in building material inside Poe Hall. They closed the building soon after, and that's when WRAL began its investigation.
We have had dozens of people speak to us.
And the more we reported it out, the more potential cases we found.
More than 50 cases of cancer are now confirmed.
99 reports of cancer.
We counted the cases here on this wall, and now the list of cancer patients who spent significant time at Poe Hall has reached 164.
We literally got engaged right in front of this fountain right here.
Robbie Glad's wife, Sarah, earned her bachelor's and master's degrees from NC State.
5-year plan was to start building our family. We wanted to have 2 kids. Her and a friend of hers who both spent their master's program in Poe Hall, within months of each other, had been diagnosed with some kind of cancer.
Sarah died of breast cancer in January, but not before delivering a healthy baby boy.
I don't care about money. Don't care about compensation. I do care about being able to help other people.
Are you worried about the reputation of this university?
I'm not worried about the reputation of this university because I know we're doing the right thing.
The university's Chancellor Woodson says more testing is being done. The school says they are deploying every resource available to get answers.
In order to be able to fully engage with people about health implications, we have to have questions answered about the environment within the building.
Preliminary testing by outside consultants hired by the university found PCBs in Poe Hall. The building was built in 1971 before the chemicals were banned. In a statement, the university says that no state or federal agency has completed the work to determine if there are health impacts related to Poe Hall. And experts warn it's difficult to link cases to chemicals found in buildings, but not unheard of.
I do think that the information that's in the record about the PCBs in the building really suggests that there's a possible signal there that needs to be followed up on.
When do you think people will get answers?
We're working on it as quickly as we can.
Answers that for these women cannot come fast enough.
The lull there where they didn't do anything for a while for the people who were in that building is unforgivable. More than a third of those 164 cases are breast cancer. Now, we did the math to see how out of the ordinary that was. And for 2022 alone, the rate of diagnosis for breast cancer in Poe Hall was 3 times that of the rate of breast cancer diagnosis in all of Wake County. NC State says we should have more answers by the end of this month. And they've been waiting for 5 months, all the people in that building. So those answers really can't come fast enough.
Tonight, only on WRAL, we're hearing from 3 people who worked in this building at NC State for decades. This building is now shut down after testing showed it has potentially cancer-causing chemicals inside. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. A source gave WRAL this letter. which they sent to some faculty members explaining the building would be shut down because PCBs were found inside. Now, since then, we've been looking into what the chemicals can do to people who work there. 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur is live tonight after speaking with people who say they are worried about their health and how the university is handling all of this. Keely?
Deborah, this is a very big story. We have 3 separate sources speaking on the record about their big concerns tonight. Now, all 3 of them either have an illness they are currently dealing with or are concerned for the health and safety of their colleagues and students. They don't know if Poe Hall is to blame for those health issues, but tonight they are certainly blaming the university for ignoring their concerns for, they say, decades.
A retiree who spent 18 years at Poe Hall tells WRAL News that the building was not only filled with classrooms and offices, but black particles in the air.
There was the black particles spewing out, and every day I would come in and other people would come into their office, and it was everywhere.
They say this was around 2010 and the problem never got much better, claiming at one point workers put cheesecloth over vents to catch the black particles.
And I would change the cheesecloth out like every 60 days.
When you changed the cheesecloth out, what was on the cheesecloth?
Black stuff. It was all black.
Next, another former Poe Hall worker tells us a similar tale, this time around 2015, with black sludge seeping from the ceiling.
Black liquid started dripping from the ceiling onto my desk.
Had you ever seen anything like that before?
No, it wasn't just a little bit dirty, it was black.
Both former employees say little happened when they communicated their concerns.
We asked questions to the person in charge of the building, and he said it was nothing to worry about.
Yet the person who witnessed the black water later developed an autoimmune disease. PCBs are linked to disrupting immune systems.
I can't say that my autoimmune was from that or from the stress of working there.
Both sources tell us multiple colleagues who worked in Poe Hall developed cancer. Some of those colleagues died.
And he had a really bad cough, and it turned out that he had cancer, and he didn't survive. He was an assistant dean.
And in present day, a current student who spent most of their time in Poe Hall tells WRAL News that many students complained about illness this semester.
I have heard reports from other students about experiencing headaches in the past few weeks that at a more increased rate than they normally would, as well as a few people saying that they've had rashes.
Different sources, different experiences, all 3 calling for more updates, guidance, and transparency from the university.
Is this going to be the thing that finally changes that culture? I hope so. If not, what will be the next thing? I don't know.
Now, in the effort to have that transparency, we put all of those claims that you just heard in the story, the fact that cheesecloth was used to help mitigate the situation, the accusation that an assistant dean died, the accusation that students are currently suffering from headaches and rashes. We sent all of those over to NC State University about an hour and a half ago. I told them that we were going to report this and that we wanted a response from them. We haven't heard back from them just yet, but we are going to update our web story once we get that information back from them.
We know you'll keep working on this. Keely Arthur live on NC State's campus. Thank you, Keely. This is a story we are going to continue to follow. If you or someone you know may have health problems from PCBs at NC State, let us know. Go to report it on WRAL.com and the news app. In the last 2 hours, 5 on Your Side obtained documents showing NC State was aware of complaints of toxic chemicals inside Poe Hall more than a month before it evacuated the building. 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur is live after speaking with faculty, students, and parents who say they are frustrated with how the university is responding to this. Keely?
So I just want to paint a little bit of a timeline for you. The complaint came out on September 25th. That's when the North Carolina Department of Labor sent a letter to NC State saying some employee at Poe Hall is concerned that they're exposed to asbestos and PCBs, which we know can cause cancer. The North Carolina State University officials then had 7 days to respond to that letter, which we know they did, but it took them
53 days until they officially decided to close Poe Hall and finally let students and staff know what was going on.
I think I would like
Leslie is proud of the technology education degree she spent countless hours at NC State's Poe Hall to get.
Because all of my major classes were focused in Poe Hall.
When she's not teaching, she develops e-learning courses on everything from Spanish to work etiquette. Impressive, made even more so when you know she was diagnosed with a thyroid disease while at school in the mid-2000s and later with thyroid cancer in 2016.
Did you have anyone in your family who had dealt with thyroid cancer?
I did not.
When news broke that NC State was evacuating Poe Hall due to the presence of toxic chemicals, she had one thought.
Oh, I spent a lot of time in that building. I wonder if or how this contributed to my health issues today.
She's not alone in asking that very question, from former employees who wish to remain anonymous to students on social media and fed-up parents. Many are wondering if the toxic chemicals present at Poe Hall have anything to do with their current illnesses.
It absolutely brought clarity. It was like, well, ding, ding, there's the problem.
Denise says her son never had health issues until this semester when he took a 3-hour weekly lab in Poe Hall's basement.
What was weird is the classes that he was missing were mostly the 2 days after he had the class in Poe Hall.
And you said it was really a sore throat, but a mix of things, just kind of feeling under the weather for a long time.
Even now, today, he still feels under the weather, and he says he just can't shake it.
Despite all the questions, all the concern,
I'm one of those who just wants to know.
Little coming from the university. Some say they were once so proud of.
Should they not be testing these classrooms and these buildings on a more regular? I mean, the amount of money they're making off of parents to get that education is staggering. Could not more have been done? The history is amazing, but at what cost?
And from the looks of things, they really don't regularly test these buildings. NC State telling us tonight that the reason why they tested Poe Hall was because of the complaints from employees. We sent them a list of 12 questions asking when exactly they did their testing. That would tell us when they knew compared to when they let students and staff know. They didn't really give us much in terms of specifics, only said the testing happened in this semester. We also asked if they were going to test any other buildings, given the fact that Poe Hall was built in 1971, as were many other buildings and around that decade, around that time. And they said they are not going to test any other buildings on the university campus right now for these cancer-causing toxic chemicals.
Only on WRAL, after more than a month of pushing for documents, 5 on Your Side has obtained test results showing the levels of cancer-causing PCBs found at NC State. Poe Hall started shutting down more than a month ago after the discovery, and since then, students, faculty, and staff have been asking about what they've been exposed to inside that building. Keely Arthur had an expert analyze the test results.
Documents 5 on Your Side exclusively obtained show 5 PCB test reports the university commissioned from October into November and varying levels of PCBs in the HVAC system and on surfaces inside Poe Hall.
Not every one of those samples showed results at all, but there were a number of the samples that did show results, and in some cases at fairly high concentrations.
Dr. David Carpenter is the director of the Institute for Health and the Environment at the University at Albany. He helped us interpret those results.
Some of the wipes showed very high concentrations. The bulk samples were extraordinarily high.
Most of the samples were taken from the HVAC system, but Dr. Carpenter said the PCBs detected in the 5th floor women's bathroom of Poe Hall struck him as significant.
Nobody's crawling up an air shaft, but the restroom is people using that all the time.
It's not clear exactly where every sample was taken, and Carpenter says the tests used were not sensitive enough to gauge how contaminated Poe Hall is. With that in mind, though, 5 on Your Side asked Carpenter just how concerned people who spent a lot of time in Poe Hall should be.
I think they should be concerned to the level that they would want to have the building evaluate this further.
Keely Arthur, 5 on Your Side.
NC State previously said it is doing more extensive testing for PCBs inside Poe Hall. In a statement to 5 on Your Side, it said that testing is underway. They also said their preliminary data suggests the transfer of PCBs from potential sources to occupied spaces has been limited, and that simple cleaning steps can effectively mitigate exposure to PCBs that could be present on surface dust.
Outrage at NC State, 2 months after closing a busy campus building because of the presence of toxic chemicals. This letter, given exclusively to WRAL's Keely Arthur, it reveals NC State asked the federal government to stop investigating potentially high rates of cancer there.
Right now, NC State is calling all the shots, and I just don't understand how that's possible.
Keely joining us now in the studio. Keely, you asked the university why it won't participate in this free and independent investigation.
Gerald, NC State's decision defies the guidance from the state health department and ignores the pleas of several former educators and students at NC State now battling cancer. 5 on Your Side spent 11 weeks gaining their trust and have confirmed 40 cases of cancer in people who spent years in Poe Hall. All they ask for is an independent health investigation, something one former NC State student will never live to see.
We literally got engaged right in front of this fountain right here.
The easiest choice Robbie Glad ever made was getting down on one knee for Sarah.
I'll describe her very simply. If you saw her, it was big hair, big smile, and the biggest dimples you've ever seen.
Sarah had big plans. She earned her bachelor's and master's degrees at NC State. She dreamt of running for office and becoming a mother.
5-year plan was to start building our family. We wanted to have 2 kids.
But by 33, Sarah was fighting for her life.
Her and a friend of hers who both spent their master's program in Poe Hall, within months of each other, had been diagnosed with some kind of cancer.
NC State closed Poe Hall last November. WRAL first reported the decision due to PCBs, the toxic chemicals once used in manufacturing, now linked to cancer.
And I believe that's why she reached out to you.
In December, we agreed to an interview that would never come. Sarah died of breast cancer this January, but not before delivering a healthy baby boy, even as her cancer spread.
He inherited her dimples, so I get to see a piece of her every day.
Others continue their fight. 5 on Your Side confirmed at least 40 cases of cancer in people who spent time in Poe Hall. One current NC State employee did not want to show her face, fearing retaliation at work. She too received a breast cancer diagnosis after years in Poe Hall.
If they understood what these women have gone through and what their families have gone through, I think the least they can do is even act like they care, you know?
In late November, 5 on Your Side uncovered this survey sent from an NC State employee to people with cancer before Poe Hall closed down. We later confirmed it was used to request a health hazard evaluation. That's a federal investigation which could review reports of illness, conduct medical exams, or collect samples at work sites.
Felt really good that the university felt like they actually cared and were trying to uncover and kind of get to the bottom of that.
When I followed up with the CDC 2 months later, I was told NC State's general counsel withdrew the request in January 2024, explaining the agency did not have the authority to proceed with its evaluation without the cooperation of the university. You heard that right. The CDC says NC State halted the free inspection they asked for, instead hiring a consulting firm to study the building. After repeated requests for comment, NC State says it was not their decision to close the case, but the federal agencies. Regardless, the fact remains no formal investigation into the dozens of cases of cancer at Poe Hall is happening. A perplexing decision, says Dr. David Carpenter, the Director of Health and the Environment at the University at Albany.
I think when you have documentation of high PCBs, you really have to do a health assessment.
and evaluation.
Since November 17th, the day NC State closed Poe Hall, Five on Your Side has poured through thousands of official documents, sent 736 emails containing the phrase Poe Hall, placed more than 500 texts and phone calls, and filed 10 open records requests on the topic. We are still waiting on NC State to fulfill many. However, NC State did release its preliminary PCB testing results. It revealed concentrations of PCBs in Poe Hall were 38 times higher than what the EPA deems unsafe for humans.
Those are extraordinary levels.
You said that when you reach out to the university, you don't even get a response back. I know they're going to be watching this story. What do you have to say to them?
Do right by your employees and get an independent investigation. That's all we're asking for.
I don't care about money. I don't care about compensation. I do care about being able to help other people.
Other people who may have been exposed to potentially life-changing chemicals.
Yeah, well, we thank everyone who trusted us with their medical information so we could do this story. And I want to say that beyond the 40 reports of cancer, many others have written into us to tell us they have experience with other medical conditions like tumors and respiratory issues.
Well, those numbers are staggering, Keely. Poe Hall is a big building. Where exactly were the chemicals found?
Yeah, and I want to clarify, this is where the education hall is, where the psychology department is housed. So a lot of people go there to work and study. These PCBs were found in a women's bathroom, a door gasket, the air handler, and more. And everywhere they found PCB levels over that EPA limit, which they did, the chemicals have to be removed or disposed of. That's how dangerous they were, Gerald.
Boy, your heart breaks for everyone involved in this. Thank you, Keely.
All new at 5, yet another jump in the number of cancer cases connected to Poe Hall at NC State. The Five on Your Side investigation continues to grow as faculty consider a vote against university leaders. Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm Gerald Owens. Tomorrow, the faculty members will decide whether to hold a vote of no confidence against NC State Chancellor Randy Woodson, the Vice Chancellor, and the Dean of Education over their handling of PCBs at Poe Hall.
And all this comes after an 11-week investigation by Five on Your Side's Keely Arthur, who has been talking to people who worked and studied in Poe Hall and were diagnosed with cancer. Keely, those reports of cancer cases jumped yet again today.
Deborah, way up. People have come out of the woodwork, and we have a very big update for you tonight. At last check, Five on Your Side has received 99 reports of cancer in people who worked or studied at Poe Hall. You heard that right, 99. Tonight, a closer look at the numbers and why NC State is not collecting health information from any of the people reaching out to us.
99 reports of cancer to Five on Your Side, 78 females, 21 males, including 18 current employees and 47 former students. These cases reported to Five on Your Side out of distress and frustration that the university says it is not collecting health information.
People are dying. People are having these life-threatening illnesses. People are scared.
Chancellor Randy Woodson addressed the NC State community about Poe Hall for the first time in 2 months today, following intense calls from faculty and students for more information on the potential health impacts of Poe Hall, a once busy campus building shut down due to high levels of PCBs, toxic chemicals linked to cancer. Woodson reaffirming current environmental testing of Poe Hall, adding, quote, "We are seeking answers about the building with health concerns in mind." That's not good enough for many people who've spoken on and off camera with Five on Your Side. The CDC told Five on Your Side that NC State's general counsel withdrew from a federal health hazard evaluation in January. Woodson disputes that in his note. It doesn't matter, says one faculty member who emailed Five on Your Side today, saying, quote, "At this point, employees don't care who stopped the health hazard evaluation. We just want someone at the university to welcome the health hazard evaluation back."
And the chancellor's letter also said the university is expecting new testing results from those environmental consultants they hired very soon. That should give us a bigger window into how contaminated PCBs with Poe Hall really is. And we will, of course, keep you posted on that outcome of tomorrow's vote. Deborah?
NC State's chancellor and vice chancellor received votes of no confidence over their handling of hazardous chemicals inside Poe Hall. This comes 1 week after a 5 on Your Side report revealed the university is no longer participating in an independent investigation into the once busy campus building. Keely Arthur joining us now with what this vote means for the university. Keely.
Ashley, this is a huge update and rather unprecedented. 3 separate votes of no confidence were given. Faculty in the College of Education voted that they no longer have confidence in Chancellor Randy Woodson, you see right there, Vice Chancellor Warwick Arden, and Education Dean Paula Stein. She narrowly escaped the vote of no confidence by 1%, but these 2 votes of no confidence. The College Coordinating Committee for the College of Education held this vote at the behest of faculty members who say they are dismayed by the lack of communication and transparency at NC State regarding Poe Hall. The university closed the building in November after testing in October revealed high levels of PCBs, toxic chemicals once used in buildings now outlawed by the EPA due to their link to cancer. 5 on Your Side has received more than 100 reports of cancer in people who worked or studied at Poe Hall. Despite that, the university says it is not collecting health information. Rather, it hired a consulting firm to study the building with health in mind. We are still waiting on NC State for a statement regarding this vote of no confidence. The vote, though, is largely symbolic since faculty do not have the authority to remove university leaders from office. But still, it's a huge gesture. Votes of no confidence are extremely rare within the university system.
Keely, I know you'll stay on top of it. Thanks for leading the way in this reporting.
NC State has asked the CDC to restart a health investigation into contaminants inside Poe Hall. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. The request comes a little more than a week after 5 on Your Side revealed the university withdrew from the independent federal investigation. WRAL's Keely Arthur is here now with what this means for the people who spent time in that building. Keely?
Yeah, Deborah, this is a huge change of heart, and it's what a lot of people connected to Poe Hall have been asking for. Remember, this is where the College of Education and Psychology Department is housed, so a lot of people are invested in this. They were, of course, there before the building closed in November. 5 on Your Side spoke to more than 100 people who worked or studied in Poe Hall and have since developed a serious illness, including cancer. So when we exposed just last week that NC State was not participating in a free, independent human health investigation into Poe Hall, that decision raised a lot of questions among the NC State community. Instead, the university had hired their own consulting firm to investigate cancer-causing chemicals known as PCBs in the building. In November, NC State shut down Poe Hall after it tested high levels of those PCBs. And because NC State was not collecting health information, more than 100 people reported to 5 on Your Side that they have cancer. I spoke with an independent occupational health expert who says NC State should certainly look into the heightened reports of cancer and illness connected to this building.
It sounds like, that the right people are, finally coming in to essentially do that assessment and are going to get to that answer. So I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, we are a long ways away from knowing if the PCBs found in Poe Hall have anything to do with those reports of cancer or other serious illnesses. But the people who have reached out to 5 on Your Side wanting answers breathe a huge sigh of relief today. They say this is a huge step in the right direction. Deborah?
Just getting this investigation underway. Keely, thank you.
Expert analysis of the toxic chemical testing inside Poe Hall at NC State.
WRAL first broke this story last night when the university published new PCB testing results from Geosyntec. That's a consulting firm the university hired to investigate possible cancer-causing chemicals inside the building. 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur has been investigating the contamination for nearly 3 months now, Keely, and you have some important context on that report from an expert.
Yeah, this report was 183 pages, a lot to get through. And since closing Poe Hall in November, leaders at NC State have been promising more extensive testing to help explain the risk to people who spent years inside that building. The first results of that more extensive testing are now out, and the report even cautions it's not the complete picture.
Geosyntec consultants took 14 air samples and 67 surface samples, searching for PCBs inside Poe Hall. The report says only one sample showed PCB levels above EPA limits.
I have major problems with the method of the analysis.
Dr. David Carpenter researches human disease that results from environmental exposures, including PCBs. He analyzed the report and said that the fact that Poe Hall's HVAC system has been off since November and during the testing distorts the view of what's going on.
And the fact that the HVAC system was off and the sampling was done, and they still found elevations in bulk samples, in air, and in wipe samples, suggests to me that that sampling analysis underestimates significantly the real exposure that people had when they were in the building and it was operating normal.
Carpenter also said the testing only looked for 9 types of aerochlors instead of the full spectrum of more than 200 PCBs.
That analysis is not adequate to accurately measure PCBs in air.
The report theorizes that PCBs are distributed at Poe Hall through the HVAC system. Carpenter says once the system is turned back on and tested, that should provide a better insight into what the people who were working or studying inside Poe Hall were exposed to.
Turn the HVAC system back on again, and if that's the cause, then you should expect that the levels would rise.
It's a remarkable reunion.
I'm Christy.
8 women with 2 things in common. Poe Hall.
We were all students or working there.
Poe Hall was my home base.
And cancer.
Unless you've been through it, you can't even imagine what it's like. It's horrific.
I finished chemo at the end of November of 2023, so just a few months ago, and then I just finished radiation this week.
That's Katie battling breast cancer, just like Sandy, Tremaine, and Michelle did. Lee was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2018. For Anna and Madison, it's lymphoma, both diagnosed in their 20s. That news came for Christy at 22, diagnosed with 2 different cancers within 2 years.
I had already been in Poe for probably about 3 years when they started coming, and first with thyroid cancer my junior year, and then with soft tissue cancer my senior year.
Sandy, Christy, Katie, Michelle, Madison, Anna, Tremaine, and Lee. 8 names in a roll call, now numbering 123 people, all worked or learned at NC State's once busy education and psychology building, Poe Hall, all diagnosed with cancer.
Any cancer patient will tell you about the phone call that came.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like getting another phone call to see the story that said, 99 cases related to Poe Hall.
We know people get cancer in large numbers, and we're not talking about NC State as a whole. We're talking about this one building.
Tremaine spent 10 years at Poe Hall. She knew of at least 3 others from the building who also had cancer. And in 2020, she says she notified NC State about a potential pattern.
I brought it up to someone in leadership, someone that I worked with, and just said, hey, with these recent cases, now I'm starting, something just seems weird.
It took 3 more years, 13 cases of cancer, and an employee filing a complaint with the State Department of Labor before NC State tested Poe Hall for PCBs, forever chemicals used in building construction in the mid-20th century, now banned.
I mean, it's a probable carcinogen in humans.
In Poe, that initial testing found levels 38 times higher than what the EPA deems unsafe.
I was not shocked at all. I was just more shocked that it came to light.
For Anna, something clicked.
When I was diagnosed, the doctor couldn't tell me why I was diagnosed or why I had cancer. So I would like to know if maybe it was a cause.
And yet, when all those Poe Hall people with cancer wrote to NC State, most never heard back. Nothing.
There was no response, not even a thank you for letting us know, We're sorry. We hope you are well.
5 on Your Side has produced 21 stories on Poe Hall since it closed in November, interviewed more than a dozen people on camera and hundreds more off. We filed 12 public records requests, analyzed 223 pages of PCB test results, and earlier this month, we uncovered NC State was no longer participating in an independent investigation into the health issues at Poe Hall, a decision they reversed after our report. With each story, more people diagnosed with cancer came to us. We took it all down and laid it out. Type of cancer, time spent in Poe Hall, ages and years. Of the 123 cases, 4 of every 10 cases were breast cancer, lymphoma, skin cancer, and leukemia also among the top diagnoses. But is it more than average? We ran the numbers and found in 2022 alone, the rate of diagnosis of breast cancer in Poe Hall was 3 times higher than the expected rate for all of Wake County.
Oh my gosh.
How did this happen? And more important, what's being done? In November, NC State closed Poe Hall. The consulting firm it hired in December continues to test. The university created a Poe Hall updates page, complete with messages from Chancellor Woodson. Yet not once does it mention cancer or the many other serious illnesses connected to PCBs.
Unforgivable, in my opinion.
And you're looking at alumni, you're looking at staff, you're looking at people that you said were important to the university. Okay. Tell us that we are.
If you were them, wouldn't you want direct answers?
So we spoke with NC State on the phone today, and they told us that they are unable to comment on any specific health issues right now. That is, until they have a better understanding of those PCBs in the building. We know more testing is scheduled in March. Until then, though, we continue to get reports of cancer. In just the last 30 minutes, another one, 31 years old, with breast cancer.
How did you get all of these people to talk with you, not just about their experience, but also sharing very personal information?
Well, they really felt like they weren't being heard by anybody else. And we had already done, I think, 21 or so reports on Poe Hall. So they would see these reports and come forward to us. We got those cases, that case count, unsolicited. People were reaching out saying, hey, I have cancer, and reporting that. And that's when I called Allie and I said, hey, I am getting all of this information from all of these people. I want to do something with it because I know that WRAL is the only place where there's a database with this information, but I want to make it make sense and make sense of all those numbers, all those case counts. So if we needed to identify a pattern or trends or anything like that, we could, because that's what the people who are sick want. They want more information on the cases.
To be clear, you're saying WRAL is the only one with the database, that meaning that NC State does not have such a database. They have not attempted to collect that information.
They have not. The CDC is working on something separately right now, but they began maybe a week ago now. We've been working on this for 4 months.
And what kind of medical information are we talking about?
4 out of every 10 cases were breast cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, skin cancer. They're also very common. The majority of those who have been diagnosed, they are women. About 77% are women, and almost 2/3 are former grad students or former faculty and staff. Now, something that's really interesting that we were able to find out from all of the information that Keely collected is that the average age when someone is diagnosed is 44 years old. That's about 20 years younger than when the average American is diagnosed with cancer, which is really interesting, much younger than what we're seeing nationwide with a diagnosis here at Poe Hall. And what I think is really important to remember is that all of these data points, they are people, and Keely was able to talk to all of these people. And I think that it was just so brave that they came forward to share this information that is really personal, but they wanted to kind of find these trends and outliers the same way that we did. And I just think it's incredible that they came to us.
Here we are 4 months after the closure of Poe Hall. New answers now directly from NC State's Chancellor tonight. 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur has been investigating the PCB contamination at that building since the closure.
And now for the first time, she's speaking with Chancellor Woodson about the concerns of people who spent time in Poe.
Are you worried about the reputation of this university?
I'm not worried about the reputation of this university because I know we're doing the right thing.
But records show doing the right thing has been hampered by delays and communication problems, with one administrator writing he hit a couple of dead ends trying to get a hold of the Environmental Safety and Health Department at the university. Memos from the Centers for Disease Control show a federal health investigation stalled for months as the agency waited for the go-ahead from the university. And this email from a PCB expert with the Environmental Protection Agency asked two university administrators, is there an NC State contact to discuss this situation? I still have not heard anything back from the university. I mean, this shows that the EPA was having difficulty reaching NC State for weeks after the building closed.
I'm not the person to ask that.
Why not? You're the face of the university.
Well, yeah, I know it, but I didn't engage with EPA.
Another email shows a separate EPA employee was interested in visiting Poe Hall, but the agency confirms that visit never happened.
Why hasn't the university allowed any other agencies into Poe Hall?
We're the building owner. It's critical for us to evaluate the building and understand what the nature of the building is.
To that end, the university hired a consulting firm. To date, Geosyntec Consulting has taken 81 samples from this 7-story building. But an expert in the field from the University of Iowa says they should be taking 30 samples in a single classroom.
We've done one phase of testing, Keely, so let's not evaluate the thoroughness of the testing until we're done.
When will it be done?
Toward the end of April.
Until then, Woodson asks for continued patience from a Wolfpack community growing increasingly impatient.
Now, we also heard concerns from many of you that sources of the PCBs in Poe Hall may have been removed by the consulting firm before final testing. The chancellor told me that did not happen. They are not manipulating the environment before testing. We have so much more to share on this interview. It was a 30-minute interview. I asked him if he was worried about lawsuits, if he's concerned about the health of the people who are in Poe Hall. We have all of that up on our website, WRAL.com.
NC State remove or destroy evidence of toxic chemicals. That allegation was made today in front of a judge. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Deborah Morgan. Only 5 on your sides. Keely Arthur was in court as attorneys representing a former graduate student battling cancer presented arguments. Keely, the judge called this a matter of extreme urgency.
That's right, Deborah. He really seemed to understand what a lot of people believe is at stake here. We have hundreds of people saying they became sick after working or learning in Poe Hall, and they want answers. But for 5 months, NC State has prevented anyone else from getting into that building and independently testing it. Well, this petition may change that.
I mean, what are they hiding? I don't get it. I really don't get it.
A passionate plea from attorneys with hundreds of clients connected to Poe Hall, who've tried for months to get into the building and conduct independent testing. They say they've been stonewalled at every turn.
I cannot understand, Your Honor, why all of this somehow is secret information when it's a public building and it's a public university.
In civil court, they asked Judge Hoyt Tessner to finally give them access.
That's why we're here today. We need some help.
A petition filed on behalf of former graduate student Darren Major alleges NC State may have removed or destroyed evidence of PCBs, toxic chemicals that were found in Poe Hall, something we've asked about before.
Have any PCBs or sources been removed since the building was closed?
I can't answer that, Keely. I mean, Geosyntec is in the building testing right now, so I know that they're in the business.
You can't answer if anything's been removed?
I don't believe anything's been cleaned up.
During the hearing, another revelation. Attorneys working on behalf of NC State telling the court the university turned on the building's HVAC system 9 days ago, a move that experts say could significantly alter testing results, admitting the university's own consultants have not taken any samples of the building since when pressed.
But that didn't answer my question.
No, I mean, samples were not collected.
Judge Tessner will decide next week if outside experts can finally get into Poe Hall. If they do, they will collect their own evidence and samples, something that could pave the way for many lawsuits to come.
Now, attorneys working on behalf of NC State argued that this is a workers' comp complaint. It belongs in a completely different court. They say it should be in the Industrial Commission. But these attorneys work on behalf of the victims and the many other people who say they became sick from this building. Deborah, say they don't want to wait any longer. They don't care how they get into this building. They just want someone else to get into this building because they believe that NC State has really botched this whole investigation.
The NC State alumni and workers can gain access to a now closed building they believe made them sick.
That's the new ruling from a judge about potentially cancer-causing PCBs found in Poe Hall. 5 on Your Side has independently collected more than 190 reports of cancer in people who worked or studied in that building. Keely Arthur was the only reporter in the courtroom for today's hearing and has been on this story for months. Keely, after we have this judge's ruling, what comes next?
Well, Gerald, now they can do their own independent testing, and they even have the opportunity to depose NC State leaders such as Chancellor Randy Woodson. This is something that people who worked or studied in Poe Hall and later became sick have wanted for 6 months. I asked a breast cancer survivor right after court how she felt.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling amazing, vindicated. All we want is independent, appropriate testing done in this building.
Relief following an hour-long hearing. Attorneys debated whether or not Judge Hoyt Tessner should allow former NC State graduate student Darren Major and his experts and attorneys immediate access to Poe Hall. The NC State building closed last year after testing revealed cancer-causing chemicals present inside.
We're approaching 6 months where this building's been closed, and we've had no ability to access.
Major's attorneys claimed NC State may have removed evidence of the chemicals inside the once busy campus building. Attorneys representing NC State denied that and argued Major's claim belonged in a court that deals with workers' comp issues.
It is not supposed to be a tail wagging the dog situation.
Attorneys on the other side stated that NC State had delayed justice by not allowing independent experts into Poe Hall to test, despite extraordinary efforts.
This notion that the university has been transparent with the public, that it's been transparent with its faculty, its students, its alumni about this situation is simply balderdash. It is simply, it is not correct.
Attorneys working on behalf of NC State argued NC State is already working with consulting firm Geosyntec and did not need additional testing, something Judge Tessner questioned.
Why is more testing, more sampling, maybe different testing and different sampling, why is that a bad thing?
The university has been just putting this off for a long time. They've been telling us that they care about us, that they've been looking into the building, and they can't answer health questions until they know about the building, and yet the testing has been delayed. The only time they've released information to us is when, quite frankly, you have done a story, and they have had to.
The university now has 30 days to turn over documents and grant access to those independent testers. And Deborah, the judge did say that NC State will need to be present during that testing. NC State shut down this building in 2023 following reports of cancer and toxic chemicals inside. But this letter sent in 2012 to the Environmental Health and Public Safety Office at the university shows that officials knew about air quality concerns as far back as 17 years ago.
There's my IV pole.
Dr. Darren Major is fighting leukemia alongside his former Poe Hall colleagues.
One of my other graduate assistant friends has leukemia.
They're among the more than 190 people who tell 5 on Your Side they developed cancer after working or studying in Poe Hall. Major has been trying to figure out if the PCBs inside Poe Hall are the source of his illness.
Was this just going to happen, or did it happen because of my time spent at Poe Hall? And even worse, did they know something that they've concealed?
Good afternoon.
On Wednesday, only 5 on Your Side was in the courtroom when a judge granted Measure the right to have outside experts test the building for PCBs. One of the documents included in Measure's petition, a letter from Samuel Snyder, a former associate dean in the College of Education.
That he is asking about something in 2012.
In it, Snyder says he was told testing found nothing dangerous after complaints about air quality in Poe as far back as 2007, but noted problems with material coming out of the vents was still happening and asked for more testing to ensure it was nothing dangerous.
Was there any response given to Dr. Snyder?
It's not clear if there was a response back, but we obtained photos of what Poe Hall employees say was coming from the vents in the building for years. In this picture from 2018, you can see small black particles in this coffee cup and on the counter. Another photo from 2019 shows makeshift filters covering air supply vents, similar to what Snyder's letter says employees were having to do back in 2012. Experts say evidence of PCBs wouldn't necessarily be visible, but this letter was another direct request for a deeper investigation that may have caught problems more than a decade earlier.
How frustrating is that?
Oh, that's frustrating. I really just want an answer.
5 on Your Side's Kaylee Arthur was in court when a judge ruled the university must open the doors to independent investigators. Now she's here with more on NC State's appeal and the school's response to your reporting, Kaylee.
Right, Deborah. As a matter of policy, NC State says it won't comment on pending litigation. But after we broke this story, NC State sent us this statement saying, quote, "This is not about hiding evidence or lack of concern for people who are sick. The university's appeal is about respecting the law." We asked a former NC State student battling cancer what he thought about that.
What's wrong with a couple other set of eyes to go in there and investigate the 1970-something-year-old building?
12 days after Darren Measure successfully petitioned the court to gain access to Poe Hall, conduct independent testing of the building, and depose university leaders like Chancellor Woodson, NC State fought back, filing an appeal and calling part of the court's decision erroneous, arguing NC State has sovereign immunity and that Measure's dispute belongs in a separate court which handles workers' comp issues.
It isn't about the court. It's about just let the professionals in to do the investigation.
5 on Your Side was the first to break the news of the appeal. People who worked or studied in the building and were diagnosed with cancer were quick to react. Infuriating, one wrote. Good grief, wrote another. Looking ahead, a court can rule on the appeal at any time.
Now, those people are upset because there is so much riding on this. Hundreds of people have told 5 on Your Side they developed cancer after spending time in Poe Hall, and they want to know if the PCBs in the building were the cause. Now, NC State hired Geosyntec to test, but people are skeptical of the results, in part because of what the website Geosyntec says. It touts its ability to reduce, quote, legal damages for its clients. In this case, its client, Deborah, would be NC State.
Measure's side of this, they really stress the urgency in this. They want to get inside that building as quickly as possible, right?
Right. The HVAC was turned off in November. The building's been sitting dormant, and the goal here is for experts to test the building like how it was during the exposure. So how the building was when people were working and studying in it. That's why they want to get it in as soon as possible so they can get those samples, get those results. We're going to wait and see what the court has to say to it, and we will bring you that update, Deborah.
And we begin at NC State, where the school just released its second round of testing results from inside Poe Hall. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Lena Tillett. Hundreds of people have now told WRAL News they've developed cancer after working and studying in the campus building. Now hundreds of documents, 818 pages worth, could explain what was inside.
5 on Your Side's Kaylee Arthur has been going through the documents, and she joins us in the studio. Kaylee, what'd you find out?
Well, this is a significant update. It's probably one of the biggest updates we've had because for the first time ever, NC State is saying they've identified where the toxic chemicals were coming from. They say this gold insulation sealant found in the HVAC ducts right there is the primary source of the PCBs. We know PCBs are chemicals that were commonly used in buildings of Poe Hall's age. They are now a known carcinogen. 17 air samples were taken. They showed PCB concentrations, get this, below the EPA exposure levels. But an expert we've spoken with who's been investigating Poe Hall alongside us said more samples should have been taken. Dr. David Carpenter also took issue with the fact that these samples were only designed to detect certain PCBs. Keep in mind, there are 209 different types, and this sampling only tested for certain ones.
And what they find is really quite strikingly high, but it's a gross underestimation of the PCBs in the air.
Now, this is a lengthy report. Testers show where and what kind of samples they took floor by floor. You can see there. This will be important information for the more than 200 people who worked or learned in that building, and tell 5 on Your Side exclusively that they later developed cancer.
NC State Chancellor Randy Woodson praised new test results as a comprehensive understanding of the environment inside Poe Hall.
And I think that that's an absolutely disingenuous thing to say.
This report here on cancer-causing PCBs in Poe Hall is 818 pages long. However, experts say it's not enough to show what people were exposed to in this building. WRAL's Ashley Rowe is here with what this report does show and where it falls short. Ashley.
Guys, 5 on Your Side broke this story yesterday through a push alert sent to your phone. Now, what we immediately flagged was that only a few air samples were taken, 17 in total. We spoke with a former occupational hygienist who has studied PCBs in buildings for nearly 5 decades and says more needs to be done before major decisions are made about this building. Keely Arthur explains.
Cancer survivors Christy Lewis and Katie Rowland always wondered why they developed cancer so young.
I was diagnosed when I was 21 and 22.
And I was diagnosed with invasive ductal carcinoma, which is a form of breast cancer, May 4th, 2023.
They hoped this report, analyzing and sampling the toxic chemicals in the building they spent years studying in as NC State students, would provide more clarity on what they were exposed to. Instead,
I think my reaction is the opposite of what they aimed to do by releasing testing. I just have more questions now.
We've been following Christy and Katie since February. They are just 2 of the 200 people who spent time in Poe Hall and tell 5 on Your Side exclusively they later developed cancer.
I was so sick when I was in Poe Hall. Like, so sick. I've never been sick like that ever again.
This report came with a message from Chancellor Randy Woodson, declaring the university now had a comprehensive understanding of the building environment.
And I think that that's an absolutely disingenuous thing to say. They are so far from really having a comprehensive understanding of the environment that what they have is a snapshot.
That's Dr. Robert Herrick, who worked for the federal government for 22 years studying PCBs and spent another 25 years at Harvard.
I find it incomprehensible that they set out to characterize the possible sources of PCB in the building, but they didn't look at the caulking at all.
For a complete picture, he says more air samples need to be taken over a much longer time.
They really need a full-blown monitoring campaign to do a lot more air sampling in more locations and let the system continue to run and just see what the actual sort of normal operating condition of the building is.
While almost all the test results were within the EPA safety standards, Herrick said that doesn't mean there aren't possible health effects.
That EPA, in fact, themselves says, listen, these numbers are not bright lines between safe and unsafe conditions.
And so to me, like in my heart, I'm like, no, more testing needs to be done. This is not the end of the story.
Keely Arthur, 5 on Your Side.
We asked NC State for an interview to help answer the concerns you just heard there. It declined. And when we sent written questions to follow up, they referred us back to the report, Gerald.
A Attorneys for NC State filed this nearly 500-page document arguing that NC State is immune from lawsuits as a state institution and that a lower court did not have the authority to force NC State to open Poe Hall's doors. Kara Dunphy doesn't know if the chemicals found inside Poe Hall caused her husband's cancer, but she says she would like to.
He only lived about 10 months.
Today, during this interview, we told her that NC State is once again fighting against more testing of Poe Hall.
Oh my goodness, that just makes no sense. It makes no sense. What are they trying to hide?
NC State says nothing. In court documents, attorneys working for the university wrote that it is not hiding evidence or stonewalling. 5 on Your Side then contacted NC State today and pointed to several examples of the university delaying or denying access to Poe Hall, including these latest legal challenges. NC State would not respond directly to our questions, but in a separate statement said that it has allowed, quote, limited sampling of the building. Dunphy says that's not enough.
I don't have any resolution for him. I need some closure.
Tonight, change is on the horizon for NC State's Poe Hall. This is the building on NC State's campus dozens of employees and students blame for giving them cancer. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lena Tillett.
And I'm Ashley Rowe. The NC House of Representatives is prepared to spend up to $180 million renovating the building. And that could go as far as tearing the building down if this budget passes.
So this is a story you learned about first on WRAL. 5 on Your Side's Keely Arthur breaking the initial story about evidence of PCBs known to cause cancer found in the building. Keely, you reviewed the draft and it's getting mixed reaction tonight.
Right, and it's been 7 months since the building closed. Now, this is a building that, as you said, hundreds of people believe may have given them cancer. Make no mistake, they want that building gutted, but not before they get inside to independently test it. And that's something they've been fighting for months.
My professor died. My boss died. My classmates are down with breast cancer.
NC State alum and breast cancer survivor Sandy Alford spent the day warning students about Poe Hall.
We just want you healthy.
Yeah, thank you for letting us know.
She fears they are too close to the PCBs found on the interior and exterior of Poe Hall, the same chemicals she believes caused her and her colleagues cancer.
This is sort of like a sacred ground to some extent. But people I know that I went to school with are not here anymore.
People that you know that were in that building
are dead.
On Monday, the House of Representatives proposed to give NC State between $5 to $180 million to renovate the building. The difference between $5 million and upwards of, 180 is a big, big difference. Do we normally see that?
It's a little rare to see such a huge range in what they're saying it could come to, and I think that probably means that they're just waiting on NC State, and they're just telling leaders at NC State, if it's small, we'll fund that, and if it's really expensive, here's kind of our upper limit.
Both Sandy and fellow breast cancer survivor Kate Norwalk say that money and even some of the university's more than $2 billion endowment should go to the people, not the building.
If they really want to request money, they should really request money to offset the medical bills of the over 200 people who have gotten cancer or other illnesses while working in Poe Hall.
They also pray that the building is not altered in any way until testers can get in and take independent samples of Poe Hall so they better understand what they may have been exposed to.
This is evidence. This isn't a building anymore. It's evidence.
Now, of course, the state Senate still needs to review this. And I just received a text from the attorneys representing those sick workers and students. And this is what he said. Once the full extent of the PCB contamination is determined or remedied, such a gutting or demolishing of Poe Hall may be appropriate. So everyone at this point is saying, yeah, you can renovate, you can gut, but don't do it until that independent testing is approved.
Today, we asked all 19 elected lawmakers from Wake County what the state should do with Poe Hall.
We also heard from the politician who pushed for the $180 million in this year's proposed budget to gut the building.
This is the quickest way to de-skin the building, repair it, and get it back in service.
State lawmakers are moving forward with the plans to renovate that building, while sick workers and alum are fighting to preserve it.
5 on your sides, Keely Arthur broke the story last night. And Keely, you spent today trying to figure out what the future of this building could be.
That's right. This is a building that hundreds of people, as we know, believe may have caused their cancer because of those toxic chemicals found inside of it. Make no mistake, they want the building gone. They never want to see it again. Just not yet.
This is evidence.
For 7 months, 6 students and workers have begged the state and university to act on Poe Hall.
What have you heard from the university?
Nothing. There is a lot more information that they could be sharing with us.
Send an email to those folks. No one ever replied back to me.
Do right by your employees.
They say this, a state budget proposal allocating up to $180 million to quickly renovate the building is not what they had in mind.
We're trying to repair it as quickly as possible.
After talking with NC State, Representative Dean Arp out of Union County championed the funding. Our questions to NC State about it largely went unanswered. 5 on Your Side asked 21 elected officials if it was money well spent. State Senator Phil Berger is against it.
At this point, I don't know that anybody's settled on exactly what the right thing to do with Poe Hall is.
Representative Maria Cervania wrote the state should be, quote, addressing the health problems of the people affected. That's something Chancellor Randy Woodson promised in a March interview.
Well, there's so much anxiety around the fact of, like, was I exposed? Am I going to get sick?
And we're working on it.
But in the 3 months since that interview, NC State has shifted its attention and resources toward a legal battle to block access to Poe Hall. WRAL's request to review legal fees and building test costs have remained unanswered for over a month. Workers and students who believe they fell ill from the toxic chemicals inside Poe criticize NC State's sampling as inadequate and unreliable. They say legal fees and money on renovations is not where the efforts should be.
This is just another attempt for them to destroy evidence and avoid liability and taking responsibility.